with you. I feel like once we have multiple like sort of app rollup or dedicated rollups, right? The good thing like definitely we can scale the throughput like sort of at least linear or proportional to the number of rollups, right? Like for example, each rollup you can have 1,000 like sort of TPS. But in that case, once you have like 100, then you can have like 100,000 TPS, right? At the same time. But the issue is like sort of when we talk about liquidity, like sort of we divide the liquidity into multiple rollups. At the same time, probably within a rollup, as you mentioned, we can have various like mitigation ways against MEV.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I believe it can also create a bunch of these arbitrage or different ways across different like rollups to extract values. It just like sort of create more difficulty for these bots or like sort of the people want to extract values across different rollups. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so on the TPS point, I think it's so increasing the number of block space you sell is not a direct mitigation to MEV. It's more like like solving the time preference of MEV, I think. Like
It's sort of like just create a little bit more like difficulty for you to run the MEV. Because the thing like if everything within a single chain, right? Like Ethereum, probably as you mentioned, right? All the algorithms on the MEV side, they can be directly applied on these sort of smart contracts. But right now, once you have multiple rollups, it just create more difficulties for you to cross different rollups. And then the next question would be something like, as you know, right, in DevConf, you announced that there's a plan to build this single unifying auction for value expression, right? At that time, like we only know the name and also know some of the descriptions. And right now, I think it's already some time after the announcement, right? Can you share a little bit more about it and like sort of how it will be helpful to address the MEV issues? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I will be mostly talking about like the technical side, how we think the problem with current MEV industry lies, and about like several ways that you can approach this. So, for example, okay, so the thing you mentioned is like short name to be Suave, single unifying auction for value expression. Not extraction, but expression.
Expression.
This is simple. Yeah. Okay. So if you think about the problem with current MEV solution, so one of the like major thing is that it's not expressive enough, right? So we know that there is a common value, and then moving to an app chain world, we're gonna see more common value in existence, right? Then, however, like crypto as a whole, what we really want is to encourage more diverse preferences, right? What is the world we will live in if everybody wants the same thing? We actually like everybody actually wants different things, and then we need to encourage diversity, not to eliminate it. Okay, so then there's a funny deadlock scenario here. If you notice enough, so we have common value, and the common value encourages people to not have encourage people to not have expressive mechanisms, right? So you have a simple mechanism, but then once you have a simple mechanism, then people who want diverse preferences cannot build applications that encourage or express those diverse preferences on top, right? Because even if they express, those things cannot be aggregated efficiently because you have a simple mechanism, right? So then like they can only be aggregated or efficiently allocated if you have an expressive mechanism. And only by having an expressive mechanism, you can encourage more people to actually move from common values to diverse preferences, and thus recover, what we initially wanted to achieve using crypto, or like what we initially wanted to, increase our social welfare, which can directly be, and welfare can directly be reflected by everybody gets a better execution, or like everybody gains less slippage from their trade, right? So this is a net win for everybody. Okay. So one of the paths forward is to build this more expressive mechanism. Then how to build it, right? We know that having more things to say actually creates a significant mental burden to users, right? So now it's tiresome enough for me to say, oh, like I want to execute this trade. Now maybe, if I can encode more things, maybe I need to say I want to execute this trade, and this trade has to be like executed by some kind of this this counterparty that satisfy this property X, and like the execution satisfies another property X too. So this creates significant mental burden and also favors sophisticated users more, right? So then we want to eliminate this. How? We can still do this by increasing expressiveness. So for example, we know that if we give them a quantifier, say my execution is the best execution that I can ever get out of all of the possible executions in this block, then I commit to having my transaction being executed. Okay, so this is kind of a template that is universal, that is generic, right? Everybody can use this. And then once everybody uses this, you can basically eliminate the asymmetry between the unsophisticated users and sophisticated users. So you both prove the fairness point and also increase the efficiency, right? Because you guarantee that whatever fixed point solution or like whatever like equilibrium you find is in this game, it is always going to be providing the best social welfare. Okay, so this is this part. And then concretely, what kind of diverse preferences are there? What kind of malloc extractable value are there? So moving to an upstream world, we know that cross-domain is as I argued before, cross-domain is where all of the malloc extractable value lives, right? So then, for sure, one of the major things to solve is cross-domain execution or cross-domain MEV, where the solution will be everybody, everybody can publish, the users can publish a credible commitment saying that if this predicate gets satisfied, then I commit to my transaction getting executed. So notice this is similar to the more expressive language we talked about before, right? And then this commitment lives in a cross-domain execution world. So on chain A, I could say that my transaction, maybe not on chain, maybe so on both on chain A and chain B. So then I can publish a commitment saying that if both on chain A and chain B, my arbitrage gets executed, both legs of my arbitrage that get executed, then I will pay this much to whatever searcher on each domain. Then this is an expression, and then I further constrain that the both executions that I get on each domain is the best execution that is possible, right? So you can do something like this. Okay, so these are the expressiveness part and also the cross-domain part. So those things are aimed at eliminating the malloc extractable value and improve fairness. So what about mafia extractable value? Right, mafia is basically like agent has information asymmetry. So typically people have been talking about order flow auctions a lot. So order flow. So we know even in TradFi we see payment for order flow, right? Like, so I buy some like retail orders from you, and since I know it's retail, then I know I can give them a tighter slippage. And however, I know that it's more noisy trades, so then I can trade against those people and then get generate profit, right? So this is how Robinhood or payment for order flow in TradFi works. And then people have been talking about order flow auctions, open order flow auctions, which is I explicitly auction off my order flow to other bidders, and then I take the highest bid, and then that person gets to execute or trade against this piece of order flow. Okay, so this is how people usually think about those. So we have also thought about this a lot, and so I think the current conclusion, or so the current conclusion I have is that the most ideal way to solve this is to calculate to calculate each agent's transactions contribution to the satisfaction of another agent's transactions preference, and then have this value be added together, which we call like the agent's contribution, and then like have this contribution to be an implicit auction. So there was this notion in corporate game theory called Shapley value, which basically quantifies how much contribution that your transaction or like your supply has to the satisfaction of this whole coalition, or like a coalitions of agents preferences satisfaction, right? So if you think about this, what the user's order is doing is that having my order supply satisfies the demand of another searcher, right? That searcher wants to trade against me, and then I satisfy it, but then I need to get compensated. So previously I didn't get compensated. Now, if I get compensated, then it's fine, right? Because I make sure I get strictly more money from any kind of like random execution or like any other execution. Okay, so the way we approach this is to calculate each agent's contribution with sum all of them together, and then this thing, if we assume there is only automated market makers in, for example, like in app rollup, then this approach is equivalent to doing an explicit order flow auction. But without all of the externalities, right? So you can see like this is a more generic solution, and also we can reuse the same auction for any kind of well, at this point it's less like an auction, but more like a generic mechanism, right? Allocation mechanism. So then we can reuse the same mechanism for any kind of for any kind of rollups, whatever application it is, and also for the cross-domain thing, right? We don't need to devise a specific mechanism for every rollup, which we know that generic having generality is good, right? Ethereum won because of generality.
Yeah. But at the same time, do you think we need some like sort of hardware to help to enforce like sort of the encrypted mempool, and to help like sort of achieve some of the goals as you mentioned?
Yeah, exactly. Great question. So encrypted mempool is for sure something needed at the current stage, at least. So so theoretically, I believe it is possible to, not have full opaque privacy and still eliminate MEV or achieve social welfare. But at the current stage, due to limitations of we can't implement elaborate mechanism, we need some kind of privacy. So for example, the simplest thing is that you want faithful execution of the mechanism by the coordinator, right?
Yeah.
You don't want the block builder to be able to still sandwich you and not pay you the right amount, right? You actually want the guy to execute the allocation mechanism that I mentioned before. So then this comes down to verifiability of computation. So it is not exactly privacy. So we can call this like something like programmable privacy, which means
it's like a fair execution.
Fair, you verifiable execution, right? So we can implement this through things like I don't know, MPC or SGX. They both work, right? They verify that your execution is faithful, or like fully homomorphic encryption if we are talking about future. Or like so we can see like programmable privacy is needed, and like the private part is not only for verifiability but more for but also for like there's no exogenous or like out of system way that the person can act privileged based on it, right? Because that is what pretty much why I want privacy.
Yeah, sounds great. And at the same time, right, as you know, like I know Flashbot has been done a lot of like this kind of MEV sort of mitigation stuff since day one, right? Like as a researcher or developer, so what kind of stuff we can help you guys or collaborate on, like in your opinion?
Great question, because we were previously talking about app-specific rollups, right? So that is something that sits between the infrastructure layer and the application layer. So moving forward, my take is that it is vital for not only solving MEV, not only for like creating a sound future of no mafia and no Moloch, but also for the survival of this whole industry in light of recent developments, right?
Yeah.
Like we really need good applications that justify the survival of crypto to say governments or regulators, right? Because otherwise all the applications people are gonna see is that it's been like, I don't know, 10 years of crypto, and the only thing you guys have got are those like Ponzi casinos, and that doesn't
And
look
some
good. We need
fallout,
like better.
right?
What?
Yeah, some fallout of the exchanges. Yeah.
Yeah, some fallout of the exchanges that doesn't look good. So we need like real applications. So I think that is something we should work on together, right, as the community. And so basically think about what kind of application that is specific to the unlock of this more expressive mechanism, right? Because previously, as I argued, right, if you assume you can only operate in common value settings, then you don't have much mechanism to explore, right? You don't have much application to explore because you are restricted to only being able to aggregate common values. And this is made sure by us previously not having an expressive mechanism, us only having a very primitive version of the mechanism, aka like block space auction, or like even before that, like random ordering or like fair ordering, right? So then like after the unlock of those mechanisms, people are really able to express those diverse preferences. And I would really love to see like applications that utilize those diverse preferences, right? Like you can imagine like the set of mechanisms you can explore is like vastly more. And there's like probably an arbitrary amount of welfare that you can, or economic efficiency that you can gain from those new mechanisms, right? And I mean, that is pretty much why we initially wanted crypto. So, it's time to get back to it.
Yeah, that's true. And then back to our last question, and I also think that's the most fun question. Like, as you know, right, we are doing these alternative views. Like, do you have any new non-mainstream advice you want to leave our listeners with? Yeah.
Yeah, so this one, I don't know if it's it's certainly not mainstream, but I don't know if it's controversial. It's so my personal take is that scaling is like, we know that the community of crypto has focused extensively on scaling in the past, right? As justified
for the
by
past 5 or 6
5
years.
more years, right? Like, so scaling, if you think about it, it's saying that people can operate within this common value scenario, but then I make the allocation of those common value scenarios faster, right? So if you imagine the set of mechanisms is like 100%, this is the applications that you can build. So the common value, the mechanisms that you can do in common value scenario is like 1%. And then scaling is saying we solve those 1% better. Okay. So then the contrarian view, or like the non-mainstream view, is saying that unlocking the 99% of the pie and researching on how to cut the pie fairly is better than only focusing on 1% of the pie and throwing the 99% of the pie out. And cut this 1% of the pie faster, right? Because that is like, scaling solutions too, right? You cut the pie faster, not even necessarily fairly. Okay, so then like what we should do is first not throw the 99% of the pie out, and then secondly, you research on how to cut the pie fairly.
Yeah. It's a great opinion. Like regarding the 99% of the pie, right? What do you think we can do with the 99% of the pie? What's that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that is like the vital, the survival bit of our industry in the in the next few years. That is what we all need to work on. So I've asked a lot of people on this. So I've heard some promising directions. Although, so for example, right, like why didn't supply chain take off, right? Like why didn't all those like international contracts, right? They are all applications. It's because like previously we didn't solve this malloc extractable value problem. We didn't solve the expression aggregation problem. Right, we didn't justify how much value we could provide, and so in future we probably need to see more, diverse preferences enabled applications.
Yeah, that's amazing, like opinion. Yeah. For the past few years, I sort of first time heard about like this kind of opinion. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, thanks a lot, like Xinyuan. Like so basically, it's a sort of a great like time to basically we discuss about the MEV and the various like ideas around the MEV, and also great thanks to all our listeners to listen. And as you know, right, we really appreciate your time. At the same time, if you really want to know more about the industry, especially the technical parts around these. Like sort of layer 2 scalability and also the crypto industry, and just like keep posted, and we will just have more content for you. And yeah, we will just sign off until the next time. Yeah, thanks everyone. Yeah, thanks a lot for Xinyuan.